From Montana's news leader, this is the MTN Noon News.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us on your MTN Statewide News this Thursday. I'm Jeanelle Slade. Well, weekly unemployment filings rose to 742,000 last week as the country continues to grapple with a surge in coronavirus cases. The total number of Americans receiving unemployment is at 6.4 million, but millions more who are still out of work have seen their benefits run out. Elise Preston looks at some financial options for people struggling to make ends meet.
Ashley Coley lost her job as a transportation dispatcher and has struggled to find another.
Interviews after interviews and applying constantly throughout the day, and it gets down on you. Like, why am I not getting called back?
She's trying to survive on state unemployment.
Gotta cut back to cheaper foods, processed foods.
A recent study finds 1 in 4 adults is having trouble paying bills during the pandemic, but many people don't know that bills can be negotiated.
And this is true whether you're dealing with a big landlord, a utility company, a cable provider. These folks on the other end of the line, they actually don't want to punish you. They want to help you out.
CBS News business analyst Jill Schlesinger says make sure you understand the terms of any deal to postpone payment, whether there are fees, penalties, and for how long.
I actually was able to defer my loan on my mortgage.
That's given Coley a little breathing room, but 1 in 3 say they've been forced to dip into savings or retirement.
The ability to borrow and withdraw from your retirement account is available through the end of the year. Be very careful. It took you a long time to get those funds built up. If it's your last option, sure, you can do it, but try not to touch those retirement accounts.
Schlesinger says some people may need to consider bankruptcy, but that should only come as a last resort. Elise Preston, CBS News, New York.
Congress has so far failed to agree on a new financial relief package, and according to a new report from the Century Foundation, another 12 million Americans will lose benefits from 2 key federal programs that expire the day after Christmas. Well, it's time now to check in on the weather scene. And Ed, the sun was shining before I came down on set. What's it going to keep doing?
Well, it depends on where we are today.
Oh, okay.
Some of the state, we're seeing sunshine. Other areas, check out northeastern Montana early this morning. Areas of even freezing rain. Notice, watch that ripple. It moves across and then eventually makes its way off towards the Dakotas. In fact, watch just before it gets to Bismarck. This is the last couple of frames. Looks like it's a bad day to get your car washed there. Western Montana, we're dealing with snow. In fact, areas of blowing snow. Check out some of the road conditions here as visibility is very poor. Plus, we're seeing areas of blowing snow that will cause some minor drifting and some slick spots in a lot of the roadways as well. But we do have those areas where, as Jeanelle mentioned, we still have some sunshine. We'll talk about that with the forecast coming up in just a couple of minutes from now.
All right, thanks, Ed. Well, at this hour, there are a total of 583 reported COVID-19 related deaths across Montana. Now, the latest death out of Missoula County adds 1 more victim since last night. MTN News follows increasing death and case count numbers throughout each day from each specific county to bring you the latest, most accurate totals. So this is the number at this hour. Well, as we all contend with this pandemic, emergency medical response, like everything else, looks quite different. MTN's Megan Mannering explains how the virus has amped up the workload.
Lights flashing, sirens blaring. At the first sign of an ambulance, you know the crew inside is working under incredible pressure.
Yeah, it's definitely taxing at times.
Each year, Missoula's emergency medical service responds to over 10,000 911 dispatches. This year, the calls continue coming in, but something's different.
The quantity of calls has gotten much larger.
Paramedic supervisor Jeff Welch said that back in March, they would receive 2 to 3 droplet precaution calls each day. Now, those are calls that indicate they could be walking into a potential COVID exposure. Now they're receiving 10 times as many calls. Welch suspects that the uptick in those calls is related to emerging COVID symptoms.
Let's just say somebody says, all right, I have belly pain. So belly pain is becoming a primary symptom of COVID, that we're finding that just having abdominal pain alone could be a COVID sign. Now, there may be other reasons for that, but those are the people that get super panicky when they have a negative or a positive test, and then they start having symptoms that make them believe that now I have the COVID. So then they call us.
These droplet precaution calls ensure the responders are prepared for COVID exposure. For that, they're very helpful, but they also interfere with the workflow.
If you run a call like that is presumed COVID, or you're taking that COVID concern, that takes you out of service from the rehab side. So you get to the hospital, then you got to do a deeper clean on your ambulance. We have sprayers and we have a fogging machine. We have some stuff that we spray on the ambulance and have to let it sit for time. So the turnaround time has increased.
As someone on the front lines, Welch has seen the pandemic up close and personal on a daily basis. His advice? Just stay home.
It's gonna be hard to say I'm gonna have to Zoom in with my family eating Thanksgiving dinner, but that's just gonna be a thing. You just can't, I think the benefit does not outweigh the risk. I just don't believe it does.
In Missoula, Megan Mannering, MTN News.
Thanks, Megan. Although they're experiencing a high call volume, Welch does not want to deter people from calling emergency services if the need is there. Well, the Missoula City Council is set to vote on a flavored tobacco product ban next week. It's a topic that's raising a lot of voices. As proposed, the ordinance would make it a violation to display and sell flavored tobacco at retail shops in Missoula and 5 miles outside city limits. The councilors who proposed the ban say this is an effort to keep these addictive chemicals out of the hands of our children. Opponents argue the ban will only cause businesses to lose money and drive customers to online shopping. The vote will take place next Monday night at the Missoula City Council meeting. In Great Falls, Cascade County Commissioners passed several motions around medical marijuana dispensaries last night. Commissioners voted to decrease the distance between a medical marijuana dispensary and a school or place of worship from 1,000 feet to 500 feet. This change falls in line with state regulations. They also denied a recommendation from the Planning Board to expand where medical marijuana dispensaries can operate. Commissioner Joe Briggs says when medical marijuana discussions came into the spotlight in 2012, there was public concern around providers near neighborhoods and areas with children. So Briggs voted against the motion based on his prior promises to area residents.
We're basically being asked to accommodate that fact in how we do it, and I'm not willing to sacrifice neighborhoods outside the city limits for the sake of that problem.
Now, before the motion to deny passed, a dispensary owner argued that medical marijuana businesses established in districts proposed by the Planning Board could still be built far away from vulnerable youth, and that leaving these businesses to operate in an area with no other commerce places a heavy financial burden on them.
By leaving us in the I-2 heavy industrial, by dropping the 500 feet, there is still nothing out there available. And if you guys drove out there, you know there was nothing to rent or anything like that out in that area.
Commissioners also unanimously moved to adopt updated terminology and language pertaining to medical marijuana dispensaries that are consistent with state definitions. Up next on your new news, we are hitting the boards with the Harlem Globetrotters. They're back with some new moves and some world records. But first, Ed McIntosh is in next with your statewide weather forecast. Don't go away.